Morning, good morning. Audio check, please. If you can hear me, let me know. If you can hear me, let me know. Thank you, thank you. Good morning, good morning. HP, Dad, Lewis, good morning. Today is September 3rd, 2023. We are on the back burner of the year. We will get started in the next 5 minutes. Hope everyone had a good week. Hope everyone has a good weekend. It is a long weekend in the States as we are celebrating Labor Day. So if you are in the States, hopefully you have a good long weekend. Obsidian, good morning. Axel, good morning. Got some fun announcements today. Got some charts to go over. It's just me this morning. Henry is on vacation right now. So won't spend too much of your time, but we do have some stuff to go over. So while we're waiting for the ones that are already in here, good morning, Victor, and for the ones that are watching the recording, before we get into anything, a couple of quick announcements. So we believe that we will be able by next weekend, if not next weekend, the weekend before, but we're really going to shoot for next weekend. We are going to basically have the platform introduced to all of the beta testers. We believe, and I have to talk with Henry, but I'm thinking what we might do is next weekend's call will be us walking you through the platform. The platform will only be available the first week for anyone who's given a testimony. There's a handful of you guys, so if you haven't given a testimony yet, please reach out to us in a form of email and give us a short little 2-sentence testimony with where you're from. But we will collect all of the beta testers and we will send out a Zoom call privately to you. And with that, we will sit down and the entire call will just be us walking you guys through the platform. With any questions, you guys will be able to ask questions about it, see how it works, and then you will be able to utilize the community throughout that whole week inside the platform. And the week following, we will open it up to the rest of the community. But that first kind of launch, we are going to have a call specifically for the beta testers. There's a handful of you guys. So please, when you do get that link, please try to make the call because we want to get any questions, any feedback, any last minute tweaks that you guys might like or want or need that me and Henry might have not already thought of. But I am very, very excited to share and show you guys what we've been working on. I think it's going to be special. I think it's going to be unique. I think it's going to be really, really cool. And I think it will help out a lot. That first week that we do that and that we do beta test, we are going to still post the midweek review out on email and stuff like that. It'll kind of be side by side. We'll be posting inside of the platform, but then also on the outside because obviously there's going to only be a handful of individuals there. And then that week following, once it's released to everyone, we will go ahead and I will stop sending emails out to you guys each week, and everything that revolves around the community, whether it be a midweek call, a weekly Zoom call on Sundays, trading tasks, or anything else like that, everything's going to take place inside the community. So the only way that you can really, keep up with the community is going to be there. There will be no more emails sent from my email. Yes, there will be emails sent to you guys, to the community, but you will have to have uh, an account with them. Yes, it's going to be free coming into it, but overall, the only way you're going to be able to stay connected with the community is to have that account and have that login. So I'm very excited. I think it's going to be awesome. I think it's going to be cool. It will grow, and it will we'll tweak things along the way, but we do believe that we have a solid foundation and base for it. And I'm just really excited to share it with you guys. Aside from that, I'm trying to think if there's any other major announcements that I am missing. I do not believe so. Off the top of my head, I think that is it. If you guys have any questions, obviously feel free you can shoot me a question right now about it if there's anything that you guys are curious about. But please note that we still do not have any form of payment structure built in. We want to make sure that you guys get the best value out of it. And we want to make sure that you guys are getting what you should get out of it. But I will say, as the community grows, as we together as a community as a whole grow over time, to keep up with certain things, whether it's hosting costs or whatever the case is, we will end up, there is going to be a payment structure down the road that might not be incorporated towards you. It could be incorporated towards you, but just know that we are keeping you in mind, and we are not trying to do this to make this a profit scheme, right? This is for you, but as the community grows, as we get these nicer things for the community, there will probably be a payment structure along the road. So just keep that in the back of your mind. That's not to say that you may or may not get grandfathered in. We don't know how it's going to grow. We don't know how we're going to market it, whatever the case is. We want to make sure that the ones that have been here, you guys that have been loyal to the community and shown up every week, we want to make sure that even if we do go live with something and all of a sudden we get flooded with a whole lot of new students, we want to make sure that you guys don't get left behind and you guys are still the main focus, and that they need to any new members that come in need to kind of play the role of just sitting in a chair, listening, following along, doing the things that they're doing, and it'll be up to us as a community to actually sit there and do what we've always been doing, right? Asking questions, answering each other, participating, all of this stuff. But I am super, super excited. It's going to be very, very cool. I'm excited to see your guys' reactions. And I'll give a little hint towards it today, and you'll see it in my charts a little bit. But aside from that, I'm super excited to see where we go, all of us. So that's enough for that in the platform. Hopefully by the end of this week, we will have something for you guys. So for whatever reason you didn't end up sending a testimony or you couldn't, that's okay. Just know that there will be a call next weekend, hopefully, if not the weekend after, for just the individuals that have given a testimony. And really that whole call will be based on just walking through the platform. It won't be a regular call that we usually do. And then we'll go back to the regular calls. But enough of that. Let's get into the news. So very light week this week. Obviously, last week we had NFP, and a lot of you guys were asking why the task this week was only up until Wednesday, right? A lot of you guys felt bottlenecked by that. The reason why I did that was because on weeks of NFP, Michael talks about a protocol about how you should be only in the market up until Wednesday AM session. Aside from that, you should just be a student. So I got some messages this week about why it was only up until Wednesday. And the reason for that is because as a trader, you want to be trading in the conditions that are best suited for probabilities, right? We play in a game of probabilities. It is a lot more probable for you to trade Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday of that specific week, because after following Wednesday at AM, going into Wednesday PM, Thursday, Friday, and all that stuff, the probabilities become less. Yes, there could have been a trade that you would have really liked to play, but the reason why I did that is to try to get you guys in an idea and mindset of trading when it is going to be most profitable. You will see throughout these tasks, sometimes you'll have the whole week to trade. And then sometimes I'm aiming for very specific days and times for that. And it's meant for that because I want to try to get you guys to know when to look at the market with the expectation of executing, but then also when to maybe look at the market without the expectation of executing. Okay, so even when we get into the task going into this week, you'll see it's still very specific, or it's very specific time and day oriented, because I want to try to get you guys to understand that the biggest thing and one of the biggest breakthroughs for me as a trader is understanding the time windows in which I need to be a participant in the market, right? And it starts here, right? It starts exactly where we are right now. Why do you think the first thing that I always go over is the news, right? The very first thing of every single call is going over the weekly news. Because if you start to pay attention, that no matter where or how or what the news is, that completely and will always translate into where and when we try to tell you guys to do the tasks, right? So, for instance, last week it was NFP week, and you only could trade till Wednesday. When I show you guys the task this week, I want you to go back and look at the weekly calendar for this week, like we're talking about, and see how it's always directly correlated to what's going on in the news event, right? You need to be tied in to the calendar, right? It's got to be one of the forefronts of your trading regimen, because you have to understand when and when not to be a participant in the market. So very light week this week. No news on Monday, no news on Tuesday. You have ISM services releasing at 10 a.m. on Wednesday, and you have unemployment claims at 8:30 on Thursday, and an FOMC member speaks at 10 a.m. on Thursday as well, right? So keep that in the back of your mind. Wednesday, Thursday AM sessions are probably going to be the most volatile, and see how that translates into this week's tasks. I realized that this past week's task was a lot harder. It had a lot more things tied to it that kind of constricted you, and I saw, if you send in your task to Henry, I might have not gotten it because he's on vacation. So we had a lot less assignments sent in this week, and that's okay. But also, I really want to strive for you guys that even if it does seem hard, still give it your best try. Still try to do it, because there's a reason. There's a reasoning because I try to incorporate things that, like, the best way I can say it is, like, the task is not for, you're not going to look back at the task and you're going to say, oh my gosh, I gained 50% in 2 months or something like that. It's not to try to get you to have this crazy backlog of good percentages. No, it's there's each week there's different takeaways that you need to get that will help and aid you as a trader in your longevity as a trader, right? I try to put you in scenarios where it's going to actually help you later on, not for the sake of just winning and getting percentages, but putting you in scenarios of where you should be, where you shouldn't be, and give you the type of expectations you should give yourself week in and week out. So very light week. Wednesday, ISM services PMI, 10 a.m. Thursday, unemployment claims, FOMC member speaks. Really self-explanatory, light week coming off the NFP week. Any questions there before I get into the charts? All good there? Ismail, I saw you hopped in. Florina, I saw you hopped in. Kat, I saw you hopped in. Hello, everyone. Honora, it's a new face. Nice to see you. Okay, so starting with DXY. Okay, so coming in to where we left off on the midweek review, you can see that I was actually bearish on dollar, but that's why I always try to give you guys the other side of it, right? The one thing that I said was there was this weekly BISI right here, and if we respected that, price should go higher, right? And you can see that we were very sensitive to it, right? My main thing was if we were going to go bearish, I would need to see that break and price respect either this order block low or the SIBI, right? But notice how price did not give that. What did price do? It respected this. And I said that also, if we were going to go higher, we would respect this and then eventually respect the SIBI too, right? And then we could eventually go and continue to take buy side liquidity. So DXY did go higher. My first take of it was wrong, right? I thought we were going to go lower, but that doesn't automatically translate to, okay, price has got to go lower, and now I'm going to only take that. We've also been in a little bit of a mixed market between ES and DXY. As DXY went higher, ES didn't really go that low. So you have to always be an analyst first, right? And that analyst is going to have forefront ideas, but then also it's not just this one and done idea, right? It could be a one and done idea, and you could say, okay, I think price is going to go lower, but if it doesn't go lower than X, Y, and Z, then I'm not going to trade, right? Or you could be an analyst in the aspect of, okay, if it does go lower, it should do this. If it doesn't, it should do this and go higher, and then you can balance those two and understand that. And so on a weekly, obviously the main thing to take away is this little BISI. This was outlined in the midweek review. Price ended up dipping into this and going higher, right? Very sensitive. We went all the way back up. So that does show us, to me at least, an idea of bullishness in this market, because very small fair value gap, and it had no business being there, right? And never wanted to get back below this, which would have been an order block. Now we're back above the mean threshold. So now my eyes directly go to this buy side liquidity, right? So even being bearish on Wednesday, now I'm very kind of focused in on this buy side liquidity. So now I'm more bullish than I was. Just one weekly candle, right? A weekly candle can give you a lot. Notice how also throughout the weeks, once we took this first buy side liquidity pull up here, I went neutral. I wasn't quite sure, right? And we kind of played back and forth in this area. I told you guys I needed more information. This past week, after the week is done, it gave me a lot more information, right? We dipped down into this BISI and showed a willingness to go a lot higher, right? So now my idea is here. My idea goes here, right? And I'm not going to sit here and look at these yet. I'm only going to focus right here, right? My focus is 104,700, right? This buy side liquidity pool. Notice how I shifted within a week to week and a half. I shifted from, I was bullish on this buy side liquidity. It followed through. I went neutral. Wasn't quite sure, but I was a little more bearish because of how the smaller time frames were playing out. But I knew that this BISI was still here, so I needed to wait, and I still had to kind of remain a little bit neutral on it. And obviously then going into next week, we respected it very cleanly. Now I'm back on the side of I believe we could go higher and take 104,700. It's price has given me a decent amount of information now this past week to formulate a stronger bias on the upside, right? Notice how price is going to give you what you want, but you just got to be patient at times, and you got to be strong enough to know, hey, sometimes it's stronger to know when you don't know rather than thinking that you know all the time, right? So going into a daily, if we could see here, obviously you can see the daily candles. Look at the respect of that weekly BISI, right? One daily candle down in it, closed back up in that weekly SIBI that we've been talking about, Next day, dips down, very sensitive towards it, right? The daily low is of that weekly BISI high. And look at that closure, all the way back up towards that mean threshold, right? Very next day, right? Remember how I was talking about how price should, if we do respect this, we should then come back up and use this as support and go higher, right? That occurred right here, right? Look at that daily candle low. Look at the low of this day, this candle, and how it inverted that SIBI again, just like it did here and here. And look at the sensitivity of this BISI, right? Thursday and Friday. Now the other thing is we're in a mixed market right now. So you would have seen if we were in a trending market, ES should have gone way lower. It didn't really. So you have to consider that, right? Even though DXY is doing stuff like this, ES has not been moving as it was at least the first part of the week, right? This happened the second half of the week when ES actually went higher too, but it went higher in the first half of the week. So when we're dealing in a mixed market, we've had it a couple times this year. When you're dealing inside of a mixed market, when you have to be a lot more patient and you have to wait for that Kraken correlation, right? I need to see DXY either continue higher with the idea of ES going lower, and I have to see that, or I need to see ES wait, consolidate, ES go higher, take a specific buy side liquidity pool, and then go lower, and then ES continue higher, right? We've got to wait for that Kraken correlation before we can sit there and say that we're back in a trending market. So with regards to a daily, I am bullish. I would kind of aim for, if you look at the weekly, take the consequent encroachment of this wick right here, which is the previous wick, right? I would be looking for the 25%, and I would be looking for this 50%. I also like how that 50% lines up with this, because these two candles right here could be considered an order block, right? It's a set of down closure candles. It's an order block high. We have the sell side liquidity right here. That also lines up with the 50% of this previous week's candle, right? So I'm looking to see how price reacts at that 103,500 level, 103,600 level, right? And if we're really bullish, I'd be drawing out the quarter point of it, right? So from a weekly perspective, these are the two areas right here, 103,800, 103,900, and 103,550, 103,600. Those areas are where I'd be looking to see, right? And if it does, for whatever reason, want to get a little heavy-handed, even though we don't have a lot of news, we could come and test this CIVI again. But I would overall want price to remain traded with regards to daily closure over the CIVI, right? I want that to stay inverted, and I want price to be very sensitive to that. So going into a daily, looking into those levels, you can see that we have kind of, for an immediate rebalance, the high of Thursday's candle could be an immediate rebalance. So we could see price come into here, do something like that. We could see price come into here, go a little bit deeper, right? This could be potentially an order block, so we could come and use this candle as an order block, right? It took liquidity right here. So watch this candle, watch the high, potentially the open, could come a little bit lower in here, right? And then we're going to want to see price start to push higher into that buy side liquidity pool, right? If you go in on a 12-hour, same thing here. You do have a BISI right here that you could draw out, and a small little SIBI that could be potentially inverted. 4-hour, you do have a couple things going on here. You have a breaker right here. Price could return back into here. Anywhere up until here. You've got this long wick that filled some free value in here. So you could also take the 50% of this wick, so really one of the deepest retracements I would potentially want to see dollar do is coming down into the bottom half of this breaker and hitting that 50% of this long wick on the 4-hour. Doesn't necessarily have to do that. You can see if we did the top of it, it would still be an immediate rebalance of this specific swing. If we also want to take fibs and see where we are within parent price swings, right? A simple delivery to discount would put us inside that breaker and fill all of this, right? We've got a SIBI right here also that we could invert, right? SIBI, we used it, came lower, took liquidity, still was playing around it, and then broke through it, right? Now this should act as inversion, right? This should be inverted. So we've got a bullish breaker, a bullish rejection block, and an inverted SIBI all in and around equilibrium and discount of this specific price range, right? Something to keep in mind. So if price does decide to go lower, where could you potentially see something like this unfold, right? Price makes it high, makes it low, makes it high again, makes it low, right? Look for that. Something like this on smaller time frames, right? That's something you should be looking for if price does decide to deliver there, right? Now, another thing is if price decides, if price decides to just go higher, right? Let's say we just, we have this right here, little small BISI, right? If we decide to just go into here in the first part of the week, deliver into that buy side liquidity, right? One, look to see where ES is, look to see what that's doing when price takes this buy side liquidity, but then also see if we do something like this, right? Because if this happens, we could potentially go lower depending on what ES is, right? You want to use them in tandem with each other and understand that if ES is in a position where it looks like it's going to go higher and DXY has already taken the buy side liquidity and done something like this, you could potentially anticipate whatever this retracement is, right, could go lower, and that could offer a long on ES, right? Couple scenarios to play right there. Any questions on DXY before I go into ES? Anything else? All good? Yes.
Hi, Carson. Good morning. I think
morning.
that the only question that I have is that the coupling between the DXY and ES, and I think that you're probably gonna touch based on that now that you're gonna review ES.
Yes, I'll put them together when I go to ES. For a segment of it, I'll put them together side by side so you guys can see what really I'm kind of talking about when we're dealing with this mixed market stuff. So leading into that, ES, I know usually Henry's sharing ES, but I'm going to go ahead and kind of tell you guys my take on it from a weekly perspective. So the first thing is we pushed up into this week or this monthly, or excuse me, weekly SIBI, right? We tapped into this weekly SIBI right here. And I know that we've been talking about how on the monthly, we're coming off of the consequent encroachment of this monthly BISI. Right? This is the top half of that BISI right here. Going into a daily, we just tapped into that weekly SIBI. But there's a couple things to note. And this is where you get into a mixed market thing. Because we're tapping into a weekly SIBI, but we have a very big daily BISI. And you have a potential order block right here. The price already respected, right? There's a tiny BISI right here. I would like to see that remain open, but it's there, right? And then this could be a propulsion block, right? You use the 50% of that, and that's right there at that smaller BISI. And you also have all of this, right? You've got kind of this whole area, you've got this volume imbalance. And really this whole thing right here is a SIBI. Oops. So price is in a really weird spot, right? From this high to this low, we are in a premium, and we just topped off a weekly premium array. But we also have two BISIs in here too, right? So I am somewhat neutral on ES right now, but I do believe that my idea right now is that we will consolidate between these two areas, right? I think that we will consolidate between these two areas for a little bit, right? I would need, for me to get some sort of directional bias, I would need price to start to give way of either the consequent encroachment of this BISI right here. So like right around here, the consequent encroachment of this BISI or SIBI, and the consequent encroachment of this BISI right here, right? But really, I'm bullish until we break this BISI right here, because if we close below this BISI and the mean threshold of this propulsion block, I think we take the lows. If we cannot necessarily respect these PD arrays up here, and we can kind of get above these levels, I think we take the highs. But right now we're kind of in the middle of the range no matter where you shake it. So there's not much here. Although I am bullish on DXY, there's not much for me right now to have an idea, because the same way I could see us going lower is the same way I could see us going higher. I, gun to my head, think we go higher on ES due to the fact of us topping into this monthly, the way we respected the monthly consequent encroachment of the BISI, the way we pulled out of it, pulled back into it, and then delivered higher and broke some highs. I think that we deliver into this area and go higher. Gun to my head. NQ already tapped into that BISI. I'll pull up NQ too. But what I'm going to do really quick is on the daily, I am going to split. Oops. I'm going to split these for a second. If you guys noticed, I have different chart colors. This is not in the same thing. Hold on. I need to. Well, here, I'll just make it easier. So I don't have to switch that. Let's hide these. Okay. All right, so now we've got dollar and ES on the daily, right? What I was saying is that if ES is going to kind of hang out around here, consolidate, and maybe go a little bit lower, that would give room for dollar to push into here. Whether it wants to come into here and go higher, that's fine. Whether it wants to just go straight there, that's fine. How it chooses to get there, it's going to be a little mixed. But my idea, gun to my head, is that ES comes and takes this buy side liquidity and then potentially goes lower, right? I see price potentially doing this, right? And then going lower, right? And I see us potentially coming into here, at least into this area. With that being said, I'd like to see ES, as price goes down here, ES or dollar goes higher, and I'd like to see us find some form of reversal in here and go higher, and I'd like to see some form of reversal in here and go lower. It's gonna get mixed in here a little bit, right? how price decides to deliver lower and how price decides to deliver higher, because it's a matter of, does DXY want to retrace before going higher, or is it just going to continue going higher? Are we in the middle of the move and do we not need to retrace? Right? That's where you're going to get a little bit of that mixed market where ES might go a little bit lower with dollar as dollar goes lower, and then dollar might just go all the way up and then come back down on like a wick, and it'll take a little bit longer for it to bottom out here on ES. Vice versa, if we go lower on ES, or if we go higher on ES, right? If we come up into this area and go lower into here and then go higher, right? That's where if ES goes higher, dollar could go lower. ES goes lower, dollar goes higher. Dollar then goes lower. ES continues to go higher, right? You might have something like this. Right? ES higher, dollar lower. Here, I'll have them in one.
So basically, the highs of the year are not in yet.
No, I don't believe so. I don't believe the highs of the year are in yet. But so yeah, on ES we could go higher. That means dollar would go lower and retrace. That means then if ES goes lower into these discount arrays, ES would, or DXY would go higher into this buy side liquidity. Then dollar could eventually just kind of consolidate in here. As that happens, ES could consolidate in here, but then ES goes higher, dollar goes lower, play around in here, could consolidate in here, and go lower. So overall, I like to see higher prices on ES. I would like to see lower prices. I would like to see prices a little bit lower prices. I'm not saying dollar is going to go lower, but I think that we will retrace inside of this range a little bit, at least come back to like some equilibrium of whenever this price swing is done. And if I'm wrong, we are going to go to this buy side liquidity pool. But if you look on higher time frames on dollar, if we just go back and we look at the weekly and we look at how we've been playing off this breaker, right? We've respected it. Even though we took sell side liquidity, I want to see how we break through this high. I really want to see how we break through this high, because I think that we could take it, but I want to know that when we take it, do we displace through it, right? Do we displace through it? Then I'll switch my idea and I'll be like, hey, maybe we do go higher on dollar, and maybe we do find a high formed in ES and we go lower. But if we just barely come up into here and take it and then go lower, obviously, to me, that makes a little bit more sense. We have a BISI in here. This breaker, even though it's been tapped a lot of times, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, but then that fourth one had a lower low. To me, I'm still a little bearish on dollar, even though I see price taking buy side liquidity. I want to see how we react in here. Because if you go back to ES, right, we still have this volume imbalance right here, right? I'd like to see that get traded through. Now, like I said, wherever ES is, or excuse me, wherever dollar is, if ES decides to go lower and collapse through all of these, right, that tells a different story. Now I have to sit there and I have to switch what my original thinking was, right? If we get all the way through, there is a tiny volume imbalance right here, but if we get through there, then yeah, that could tell a different story. But we have to remember, and this is why we could kind of maybe consolidate a lot more going into the back burner of the year, is because we're coming off of this bullish BISI on the monthly in ES. We're also coming back into this weekly breaker that's bearish on dollar. So in reality, you'd like to see price respect that on dollar and go lower, and on ES respect that and go higher. But you're going to need a little bit more information to kind of see that occur, due to the fact of this is our fourth time going into this breaker. So we have to be a little suspect to the idea of it displacing through it and going back up into here. Because what would that mean for ES, right? That would mean that we would have to go lower, right? And then we've got areas in here. And obviously we could look all the way down into here, but in reality, just the idea of maybe taking these lows in here and coming and filling some of this. But that's why it's a little hard when you're going into these weekly and monthly higher time frames and you're playing off of them and you're trying to read how they're going to play. Because to me, the way we reacted off this monthly BISI, I think we take this high on ES. But dollar's not having me is not letting me be too confident about that, because of how bullish we've been the past couple weeks coming into this breaker. So I think the forefront of going into the back half of my year, my analysis is going to be how the daily closure is if we choose to deliver back into this breaker. Right? If we choose to deliver back into this breaker, are we sensitive to it? Or if we create a fair value gap in here, right? If there's a fair value gap created with a BISI in here, when we displace it, right? If price decides to create something like this, breaks through it, right? We could get something like that. And if I see something like that, I'm going to have to shift my idea and attention to ES going potentially lower. Now, if we have no sign of displacement, and if we leave a wick on a weekly in here and close back below it, and we start closing back in these candle bodies, I'll continue with my main front idea, which is dollar lower and ES higher. But I do believe, gun to my head, even though I do need a little bit more information to have a solid forefront sentiment, I do believe ES will go higher and dollar will go lower. How we choose to get there, I'm gonna need some time, because of where we're on ES, where we're playing. We're playing in between premium arrays on the higher time frame and discount arrays, and we're kind of in the middle of a range. So I definitely need more information there to be strong suited on a potential sentiment or bias. And with regards to dollar, my main idea is this buy side liquidity. I think that we will trade through that, but also I need to see how we trade through that.
So if we
Right?
close up on that buy side by next Friday, then you will be super bullish on DXY.
Yes, my eyes will start to go to these relative equal highs.
As long as we purge that liquidity and stay above.
Exactly. Yes. And now
And if we close below, that means that probably we took liquidity and we're gonna go and look lower prices.
Correct. Now, if we have one daily closure in here, and then the next day we close back below it on like a daily, that would be a wick on the weekly. So don't have, the only way on a daily I would really want to see closure is if it is some displacement candle where you have a BISI kind of created, right? If it's just this tiny little candle closure in here, and then the very next day we go lower, that's going to leave a wick on the weekly. So just make sure that it's not just one, it's the type of closure, right? We don't, if it closes above it and it's just still like if price closes with a candle up here, but it's not really displaced or anything like that, the very next day we could have a candle come and close back below here, then I'm not going to really think too much of it because that would just be a wick on the weekly. But if we do have a candle push through here and show some displacement, then yes, I'll start to use the idea that price could go higher. Another thing to note is just maybe this up close candle, right? Notice how price reacted off this up close candle on DXY. If I take that out, in the past, price was very sensitive to that, right? That's that mean threshold of that potential order block. So with that being said, I'd like to see if price does go higher, how do we potentially use that, right? How do we use the bottom half? If we do get above and we do displace, even if there isn't a clear fair value gap, if we're back above in this breaker, right, and we've got daily closure and it looks like potential weekly closure, see how we potentially use the bottom half of this breaker, right? Do we use this as resistance now and go higher, right? That's the idea that it could go higher. But I think that once we take this buy side liquidity, we actually start to just retrace back into this range, right? And we just start to kind of retrace a little bit into at least the equilibrium. And I'd like to see a return into this order block, and then we'll decide later. So a lot of things going on, not really in a crazy trending market yet. Both markets are kind of in tandem. I'll bring up NQ.
On NQ, before you start, ICT mentioned some levels, and I think that you have it there.
Hold on.
As
Yep.
That's yes, that's still yes. But I'm surprised that he never mentioned anything on his reviews about the monthly fair value gap. I was watching that very closely, and but he pointed lower prices when we were coming down, that he wanted to see more direction to the downside, and that's as soon as we talk to that monthly fair value guys when we shoot up. But surprised that he didn't say anything about that.
Yeah, he probably saw it and he probably noted it. He probably just didn't add it in his commentary. I mean, he's Michael. He sees everything. But yeah, I was watching these civvies also as well, and I was curious to see how we played off of them. But how we reacted off those civvies and how we kind of just cut through them in here, coming off of that monthly fair value gap, we were a little off right here because we thought this closure kind of tricked me and Henry a little bit because we thought we could potentially keep these now, but then price pushed right back up, and that showed us right there, and that's why a lot of my idea that price has not put in yearly highs yet is due to how we just were so quick to run right back up in there off that second test of the monthly. But on NQ, I know that there was a date someone had posted. 2nd of August fair value gap. Sorry. Okay, so August 2nd. Yeah, so he's talking about this fair value gap. All right, let me pull up ES. Turn my executions off. Take all this off. Clean this up a little bit. Daily. Okay, yeah, so NQ already, he's basically saying NQ already pushed up into this area right here. I don't know if that would be transcribed as like a six sister type of deal where ES is going to still deliver up into there, or if the ES is a little bit weaker of the two. My idea is potentially ES is just the weaker of the two, so we might not quite get up into there before delivering into these areas. But I really like on NQ, this is supposed to be red by the way guys, sorry. I really like the idea on NQ that we had a low in here. using this as a breaker, using this as a BISI, and fibbing it up from low to high. I really like that idea of price potentially delivering in here. Notice how there's no breaker in here, right? Even though there's a breaker on in ES, this is still relative equal highs to me. And you still have a volume imbalance. So I think NQ actually paints it a little bit better. But like I said, it's just depending on how dollar delivers. And you have to be a little weary though, because you do have these that got left open. Thank you. We do have these here.
Exactly.
Whether this
Those are the ones that he pointed out.
Yeah. This to me, I think, stays open. ES, you can see tapped into it already and kind of gave an institutional order flow entry drill, and here didn't quite get to the consequent encroachment of it. I think it stays open, right? Because price already took some form of sell side in here, right? It took this low. To me, this acted as an order block, even though it didn't quite fill it. I think that was just because at the time the market was so bullish, it didn't have the necessity because it still dipped into, like, there's still a, even though it's sneaky, like, that's the BISI. And it's already in the BISI, so it's already went in the BISI. Just because there's relative equal lows in the BISI, it's relative equal lows in a BISI, so it doesn't necessarily have to be as suspect as it would be if it was relative equal lows that were just sitting there in the market. But they're formed inside of a discount array. That's why I'm a little bit more suspect to them being taken, and I like the idea of price continuing higher. But I could be wrong. Like I also do believe though too is if we do respect this premium discount or this premium array and we go lower and we kind of collapse through this stuff, I think we could very well invert all of this stuff and then go lower, right? And come and fill this. But like I said, it all has to do with dollar. It's dependent on where dollar is. Any other questions before I get into my trade this week and then we get into the other trades? I did trade this week. I did do the task.
I just have one quick question.
Yes.
So it's very crystal clear for me. So what will invalidate your opinion of being gone through your head that will continue bullish? That dollar closes above that buy side and ES closes below what target or NQ?
Okay. So really a lot of it is on dollar, but I would like to see price initially without going into dollar yet, because dollar, that main focus is that buy side liquidity, right? How do we trade into there? I strongly think that we will deliver to that point this week. So how we deliver to that point, once we do deliver to it, how we behave following that is key on dollar, right? So just that main buy side liquidity pool. So really the main thing on dollar is this, right? 104,500. How we deliver and behave following delivering to 104,500 is key on dollar. On ES, without looking at dollar yet, I'd like to see how we behave on NQ inside this area, right? That 15,350 all the way up until potentially 15, really 15 flat, give or take, right? That 15 flat to potentially 15,350, 15,400. But inside these two areas, I'd like to see how we behave, if we're sensitive to it, stuff like that, right? If you get one strong daily closure inside of it, that next day is super key because how we perform following that next day is going to tell us the significance of that actual initial daily closure. But it's going to be tricky because we're in a mixed market. I'm kind of letting the two markets do what they want between NQ and ES. I'm letting them deliver how they want. My main focus initially going into the week is dollar because it's kind of I've got a timer on dollar because the second we deliver into that buy side liquidity, then I'm going to be like, okay, where's NQ, where's ES? And then I can sit there and say, okay, how are we behaving above that buy side liquidity? Because it's going to be mixed, it's going to be choppy until dollar delivers to that high. Once dollar delivers to that high, it's then a matter of now dialing in how are we responding and behaving off the buy side liquidity purge on dollar, and where are we in ES in Q, right? Are we still up here? Are we still up here? Or are we down here? Right? Because if we're down here in the blue, if we're down here in these BISIs, when dollar takes that buy side liquidity, I'd love to see dollar turn around and have these two charts go higher. But if we're not really reactive and we're kind of just hanging around and consolidating, and dollar kind of soars or kind of purges through that high and gives that displacement, I'm going to be a little bit less patient, because my play right now is price going into here and going higher. If I don't see that immediately form once dollar takes the high and goes lower, I'm not going to be as predominant on what could happen. I'm going to kind of still be a little, not hesitant, but a little bit patient, because then that could lead for, all right, price could go, because it's going to be hard for me to short these markets with these discount arrays unless we go below them and invert them, right? The only way I'm going to get bearish on NQ is if we go through here and I see price invert this level and go lower. Until then, I'm pretty much bullish on this market. It's just waiting until dollar shows me that I'm right, if that makes sense. How would the dollar show me that I'm right? Well, we take that buy side liquidity and then are very reactive to the downside. If it doesn't show me that, I've got to, as the analyst, go back in and see what I might be missing, or if there's something that is just currently forming for ES and NQ to the downside, I just haven't fully seen it yet, and it needs to give me a little bit more information. I know that's a lot of information, guys. There's a lot of different ways I can go, but that's just kind of the market we're in, right? We're getting out of August. We're in a little bit of a mixed market. I am bullish on equities and futures, but at the same time, that's me just looking at the chart, and I know how predominant dollar is to these pairs, and so I need to pair that with what I think dollar could do. If it doesn't do that, I need to kind of hone back in and see what I might be missing, or if there's more information that needs to be given. But after we performed last week on dollar, I like that buy side liquidity being taken. I need to see what happens after, right? Do we purge it and go lower, or do we go higher? Going back into ES, I will share with you guys my trade this week. So, like I said, you had up until Wednesday AM session due to the NFP protocol. We wanted you guys to at least get 5 handles with a stop loss of at least 5 handles. Aim for 1.5%, right? Going into Tuesday, there was a couple things in my mind. The main thing was we had buy side liquidity taken here. And I liked the idea of this getting filled, right? We had an imbalance here. So my idea was we were going to potentially run up into there. If you look on a daily, we had taken, excuse me, where am I? Monday, Wednesday. Yeah, so we had the 50% of this propulsion block that I was kind of monitoring. We get back into the 1 hour. Let me turn my executions on. All right, so I'm aiming here. that's my overall draw, even though I'm not playing towards it. I go in on a 1 hour on Tuesday, so my trade happened on Tuesday. Where's my box? 1 hour BISI, right? This was the 2022 mentor shop model that I was playing in, right? We had all these highs. You had high taken in here. All these highs are taken, right? We close above it, right? So here's your where's the little emoji? Hold on. Here's your shift in structure right here, right? You got your market structure shift over here. Here's your BISI. If you take from the low to high, right? It's right in and around equilibrium. Going into a 15-minute time frame, right? I'm letting price play up ahead of 9:30. We also have more BISIs in here on a 15-minute time frame. Notice how I'm aiming up here, but in reality, my trade is only going to be the daily high, which is the London high. So that was my terminus. That would have given me 1.5%, right? The goal was to get 1.5%. And I'm letting price do all of this without me. And I'm waiting until 9:30. You can see that my candle or my execution is right as price is delivering outside of this, right? Price comes into it at 9:30, pushes away from it, and right as we're leaving it, I'm entering, right? Go into a 5-minute. What do you have here? You have a breaker. Look at it all. Look how all these discounted rates are just lining up. You have a breaker right here. Relative equal lows were already taken. Another low was taken. We fully filled this range from the 1 hour BISI. You can see that that daily propulsion block mean threshold wanted nothing to do with it. Didn't quite get down to it. Pushed back higher. So we've got a breaker in here. When you go into a 1 minute, inside that 5-minute breaker, there's another breaker on a 1 minute right here, right? Right in here. Price is consolidating in these levels leading up to 9:30. 9:30 comes all the way up here, comes all the way back down. Next minute, spikes down here, and I really wanted to get this entry, but I didn't. It was a little too high risk for me. I wanted to see how we reacted going back below this breaker. We pushed all the way back up. This next candle, right there, right at the top half of that 1 minute breaker, right? Buy in at 2 contracts, 5 handles would have been right at this low. That would have been my stop loss, right? Stop loss is good because obviously we took liquidity in here, right? Price is already in a 5-minute breaker, and it's also delivered below some liquidity in here, filled some inefficiency, and that reaction higher. Where is my terminus? Exactly where 1.5% got me, right? So this was exactly, I got in at 9:32. I was out by 9:46, 14 minutes. It's about 4:41. 15 and a half handles. As you guys can see, my account history from we've had 3 weeks of assignments. First week, second week, third week, right? I'm doing the same assignments you guys are doing, right? Hold on, someone has something in the chat. So, you know, it's been I'm averaging, overall, let's say you would have, if you did everything correctly, right? You only got 1% a week. It's three, uh, $3,000. If you do that every week, that's $4,000 a week, right? And so that's good money. But that was my trade. Like I said, it's some weeks are going to be harder than others. Like I said, that's why I was trading Tuesday right at the 9:30 open, because I knew that I had up until um, Wednesday on the AM session. So if this week was hard for you, understand that it was obviously a lot harder than the other 2 weeks. Some weeks are going to be harder than others, just the way it is, but the participation needs to be there. Don't feel discouraged just because I'm sitting here and I haven't lost a trade yet, right? Henry's still in a little bit of drawdown too. He's lost some trades. I'm bound to lose one too, right? I battle trying to make them harder for me to try to push myself, but I don't want to make them too hard for you, because I know where you are in your development, and we're in 2 different stages of our development. And so I'm not worried about making it hard for me to try to get me to lose one, right? There's going to be weeks where I'm going to lose no matter what. But I want to make sure that you guys understand that I'm not going to purposely make them harder for me to guarantee a loss. So then you are just stuck with all these hard things, right? So I want to make sure that they're catered more towards you rather than to me. And there's going to be weeks where, and I don't know how I'm going to do it yet, but I want to try to incorporate a way where we all go in drawdown for a specific week and then try to pull us out of drawdown. I'm not sure how I'm going to do that because it's hard to set yourself. Henry didn't send me his trade. Actually, I don't think he traded this week. He actually he didn't. I remember when on the midweek review before we got on, he told me that he actually didn't have time and was didn't really see anything that he liked. He was looking this same morning. He actually was planning on getting in. I think if I'm correct, if I remember correctly, he was looking at a potential entry around here. But I don't know if he was busy or he had other things going on and he was getting ready for his vacation, or if he just didn't quite see his model. And I think he might have been watching down here, and I think what he was looking for is price to deliver back above these highs and come into here and fill something in here and then go higher. And I think he was looking for that entry right in there, but it just displaced and went higher and left without him, so he didn't trade. And that's okay too, right? Like if price does not give you what you are comfortable trading in, don't feel like you have to trade, but still reach out to me and let me know, hey, I don't have a trade to share this week. I was watching the markets. I just there was nothing that I saw, so I didn't trade at all. That's great. That's a win. No trade is no loss, right? And maybe you're just busy that week and you can't do an assignment. I'd love to know that. Just say, hey, sorry I can't do the assignment this week. I'm busy. Got a lot of things to do, or maybe I'm trading my live account and I just want to focus on that. That's fine. This is not for you to try to do every week. This is just for you to try to have something to look forward to every week and something to maybe look for. You're not going to get it every single week, right? It's a learning. It's just a learning thing. It's not this isn't to share the highest results and do all this stuff. Like it's made to just have some form of learning exercise. And even Henry this week said there was really nothing I could do, right? You didn't we had a short threshold of where and when we should have traded. I didn't really see anything I liked, or it didn't really give me anything in between that threshold, so I can't really trade, right? If you want to trade outside of it, that's fine. Open up a demo on top of that, and or if you want to trade your live funds, do. But also, you don't have to trade. You don't always have to trade, right? This is only 3 trades in 3 weeks. 1 week a trade, or one trade a week, excuse me. Um, but let me go ahead and um, we can talk about what people did end up sending in this week. Okay, first example. So they were entering in around that 11 o'clock hour. They were in the trade for 32 minutes. They were targeting this low. We're trading NASDAQ on a 1 minute. Stop was the high of the fair value gap, SIBI up here, right? So he's getting in, looking at these levels, he's fibbing it up. He's entering in between the 70 and the 62 in here, inside this SIBI, with the high being a stop loss, right? He's got a breaker in here. I like that. That's a sneaky breaker. But he's got a breaker in here inside of a higher time frame fair value gap. His risk to reward was aiming from about 1 to 4 to 5. Break even 11.26. So he shows that he went break even. Result negative $57, even though I set my stop loss to break even. That's fine. You can see right here you went break even, so don't worry about it, right? That's just the demo broker. It's fine. Emotions, perhaps the pressure to complete the task by 11:30, coupled with a strong bias, led me to believe that 0.7 was the ideal selling point. I maintained control throughout the trade. However, when I saw the low at 11.27, I felt compelled to move my stop loss to break even as time was running out. I applaud you for that. Right? You didn't do anything wrong. Yeah, you lost $57, but that's break even, right? You got $100,000 in your account. Don't sweat the $57. That's fine, right? That's good. Like you're coming up to that timeline. Why risk it, right? Why risk it? And look what it did for you. Look what would have happened, right? You would have gotten stopped out, and had you held it. So yes, you were kind of in that little time crunch, right? You had 30 minutes to potentially complete the trade. It could have panned out. It didn't. That's fine. You did the number one thing you should always do. You managed risk, right? 3 weeks into this, you're only $100 down the hole, and obviously 57 of it shouldn't have even been there. You're break even. That's fine. You're staying alive. You're staying alive. That's the part of the game, right? It's not how well you're doing, it's how long you're doing well. So I'm going to continue to push that into you guys. You have to survive before you can think to thrive in this market. Right now you're learning how to survive. Be a student week in and week out and get takeaways from it, whether you're right or wrong, and go into the next week not worried about the number that is in the account, how down you are or how up you are, right? You're one good trade away from being on the complete other side of things, a percent or two up, right? So great trade, right? Maybe just, obviously, and that's where I fight this a lot, is because yes, the time thing is hard. The time thing can get hard, but look how it saved you. Yes, it can feel bottlenecked. You can feel bottlenecked. I got to find something, but also it does save you, right? It saved you in this case because you would have ended up getting a stop out. But great trade overall. It's fine. With regards to why price continued going higher, could have been a number of things. You can see that the main thing that I would say from this is when you are a little bit later in that AM session, right? You're going into that 11 o'clock macro. I would say two main things that could potentially have aided you from maybe being a seller. It's one, we already took the 930 lows. See this low in here? That's that 930 equity low. We came in, obviously there was a higher time frame that you were looking at. Price came all the way down and did take it. Pushed right back into it. I like that the idea that there's a SIBI up here and a breaker. I have found though is when you kind of see this elongated on a 1 minute where it's very long and there's like a little tiny SIBI up here and you got a SIBI right here, and a SIBI right here. Price tends to fill that entire thing. Not always, but I've seen that where you get these elongated SIBIs and several different 1 minute candles. Hard price action though, very hard price action, right? We took the 930 low and then we ended up going and taking the 10 o'clock high, right? You had a reason to do it, right? You had relative equal lows in here, right? There was nothing else stopping you going lower because everything was already balanced in here. The only thing would have been this order block. Price pushes up into your level. You have a higher time frame fair value gap of SIBI coming off of a higher time frame area in here. You have a tiny little breaker block. And overall, it gave you a good reaction. But really, what the whole thing was is it never took this low. It was this low in here, right? You never had that. There was no structure break. So yeah, once you get out, once you come up in here and it starts playing and you can see these relative equal highs, it's very good you got out at break even. You managed this trade the best you could have because it didn't give you a structure break, but also it didn't necessarily give you like you came back up close into, you were in drawdown. You ended up getting out of break even. You did the best you could have done in the scenario with what you were given. There was not a better thing you could have done. You held on, you would have lost. Price didn't give you enough reasoning to take out either. You couldn't have taken any partials really. I mean, if you really wanted to, there's a tiny little BISI in here, but you didn't have any structure break, right? If price would have broken this low, odds are you would have been set and you could have probably held the trade, gotten a win out of it. That's fine. You're good. That works. That's a good trade. I very much so am proud of the fact that you were able to sit here and actually come break even out on the trade. There wasn't a better thing you could have done in this scenario. So this was the journal. They're trading oil. That's a new one. My higher time frame narrative since last week was bullish. We respected it, the weekly fair value gap BISI. Beginning of the week was watching price to see what Monday was going to do on Tuesday. We created a daily fair value gap overlapping with an implied or inversed fair value gap, aka balanced price range. They risked 0.5% with a lot size of 7.9 with an RR of a little under 5. Kill zone was New York. Target was the previous week's high. The stop loss was below the 5-minute swing low. Break even was 30 minutes into the trade. The emotion of the trade was before the trade occurred, they were calm and confident with their bias. The only thing that was complicated for them was they had never used paper trading on TradingView. You're gonna see along the way they took partials, but then added and pyramided 2 extra positions. I was expecting Tuesday low of the week. That's why I was confident to hold the trade to my target that was previous week's high. I know that I overextended my trade one more day, but totally forgot about it. Sorry for the mistake. Mistaken English isn't his first language or her language. That's okay. Well, I'll get better at deciphering it too. I understand English isn't some of you guys' first language. But overall, great trade. Obviously, had a higher time frame area in here. Price dipped down into it, respected it. He had a fair value gap on a 5-minute right here. Price delivered right into it. Enters here. He's targeting these highs. And honestly, great trade, right? You used this other BISI once we went through it as inversion. And honestly, this was a great trade. Like, you had your stop loss at the low. I know you targeted higher prices and you had partials along the way. That's great. Very simple trade, right? You had shifted market structure right here. This would have been your shifted market structure. Price comes higher, 2022 model, into here. Bingo. Great trade, right? Sounds like you knew what you were doing. You were able to hold the trade. 5-minute fair value gap coming off of a shifted market structure off of a higher time frame PD array. There you go. You went break even at this high, right? Moved your stop to break even once we got above this level. That gives you the idea that this now failed. You could use this as an inversion, and now we could be suspect to these relative equal highs. Price followed suit. Oil is a hard chart to trade. Good trade. Alrighty, for this trade, this felt forced and rushed because I didn't make a plan this weekend and the deadline was Wednesday. I have nobody to blame but myself, but I also did not want to skip an assignment, so I took the trade. I felt like I did months ago, feeling of hope and nervousness. Oddly enough, glass half full. I'm kind of glad to take an L. This will be a reminder to stop taking blind trades. On to the next one. Yeah, I mean, the first thing is like, if you don't have a plan if you don't make a plan going into this weekend or going into the week, right? If you prepare or if you fail to prepare, prepare to fail. I'll say it one more time. If you fail to prepare, prepare to fail, right? The number one thing is, as traders on the weekends, you always should take Sundays or Saturdays or Fridays afternoons when the market's closed. You need to take time and formulate something. It doesn't have to be like, okay, if this happens, I'm doing this, right? I don't trade Mondays, so I always, whatever my plan is, I always leave Monday open for me to refine what my initial plan or plans were. So really, the biggest thing in this whole thing is you didn't plan, right? So if you don't have a plan, you can't expect anything good to come out of it. And if you do win that, let's say you did win this trade, and I can't remember if you did or not, but let's say you did win this trade. Oh yeah, you said you did. If you would have won that trade, you would have then subconsciously told yourself that you can win trades without preparing. And you would have done it again and again and again. And you would have gone 50 and 50 all the time because you're either winning or you're losing, but you're not preparing, so it's the luck of the draw. Right? Like you said, you're taking blind trades. Okay? You're taking blind trades. So how do you fix that? Take, outside of this call, take 30 minutes, an hour, light a candle, put some headphones in, turn your phone off, and just say, okay, what do I think is going to happen this week? What are some scenarios that can unfold? And then on top of that is based on the economic calendar, where are some areas that I could potentially be a participant, and where do I not need to be a participant, right? And that task helps you, right? I give you 50% of the plan and the task if that's the way you're going to trade. If you're just trading these tasks trying to get better, use the task as 50% of your plan. But you got to go into the charts and get an idea of where you're going to use that task. So yeah, the only thing that I see here is that you need to prepare. Because if you fail to prepare, you'll fail. You got to prepare to fail. So this was their trade. Obviously, they were planning on taking 3 partials. They're using this SIBI right here, right? The biggest thing that I can tell you right now is you got to maybe go up to some higher time frames, and you had 2 BISIs or 2 SIBIs back to back, right? And you chose to use the first one, which in some instances is okay, but I wouldn't have, how do I want to say this? So when there's instances where you have 2 SIBIs right here, back to back, I preferably like to see I'd like to see price close back below it on this first one, right? This initial one that you'd entered on, I'd like to see price deliver up into it and then deliver back below it and close below one, the SIBI, but then also the equilibrium or mean threshold of this up close candle, right? I can see where you're using the market structure shift. And yes, but also it's one of those things where I know you got a higher time frame thing here. I'm not sure what that was or what this was, but it's hard because yes, you have the market structure shift and you have the SIBI, but it's hard when you have such a tight stop loss with a SIBI right above it. So if you're going to enter in on the SIBI, you'd like to see price deliver off of this a little bit more and then enter off of the high. Instead of where you entered, use that as your stop loss and then enter in somewhere down in here coming off of it. Right? It could still be the model, but you just need a little bit more closure and evidence to show you that it's going to use this one. But it's all right, right? You took a loss. Who cares? Still break even on the account. You're not down really at all. You're down 30 bucks. Like you guys are all still learning, losing, but learning responsibly. Right? You're learning how to lose responsibly and not just spiral and spiral and spiral and spiral and spiral. So overall, it's fine, right? There's things that you could do better, and you need to do better. Not you can, you must do better. You must prepare more. Right? If you don't, you're not going to get better. You need to prepare more. Preparation is key. Preparation is key. Right? There's a difference between being nervous and being excited. And there's only one thing that defines that, and it's preparation. If you're nervous leading up into it, it's because deep down you know you didn't prepare enough. When you're excited, you know that you've given it your all, and no matter what happens, whatever the result is, you prepared as much as you could. So you have to understand that, right? The reason you're nervous is because you know you haven't been preparing enough. And then when you start to go into the weeks and you feel excited, that's when you start to know that you put a lot more in the back end of things. Now there's a difference between being excited to trade and letting the emotions be into your trading, right? Don't let that excitement get into your trading, but it's the idea of just being in the markets and being a participant and seeing what the week's going to unfold. When you start to get excited about that, it's because you know that you've prepared and you have a plan that could potentially unfold, and you know what the things that you could do. And then when you do and it happens and you win money and you win, you feel good. And then that's a whole nother thing that you got to battle, because sometimes you feel too good. Just some food for thought. Next thing is this task for this week. So the idea behind this task will be to understand the utilization of fair valuation. Make sure to incorporate either a BISI or SIBI within your model or execution. Inversions are okay to utilize as well. Keep the same balance that you have after week 3. It is up to the trader to calculate your contract lot size. On Wednesday, so this is the idea. One trade only on Wednesday. You guys should be trading 2 different days this week. If you can't, let me know in the notes of whatever. If you can trade Wednesday, great. If not, use Thursdays to potentially do whatever. But I would prefer you initially trade on Wednesday. One trade only, risk 0.5%. Going off of whatever happens to that one trade on Thursday or on Wednesday. If you win on Wednesday, trade Thursday, and you get another trade at 0.5%. If you lose, trade Thursday, but risk 0.25%, and you can have up to 2 trades. Up to 2 trades. If you end up securing break even or partials on Wednesday, trade Thursday, but you only get 1 trade. Risk 0.5%. So everything leading on Thursday is based off of what you do on Wednesday. Wednesday you get 1 trade. If you win, trade Thursday, 1 trade, risk 0.5%. Wednesday, if you lose, you can have up to 2 trades, but make sure you risk 0.25% per trade. If you are break even or somehow secure partials before getting stopped out or break even, you get another trade on Thursday, risk 0.5%. Try to target and hold for a specific 4 hour or 1 hour liquidity pool or an efficiency. Try to at least aim for 5 handles. Partials are welcome. Moving to break even is welcome. Max stop loss still 5 handles, 4x 10 pips, and Q 20 handles. If you're trading oil, I'm not sure how. When the platform comes out, we'll have all the specifications for it, of almost all the assets. The reward. So last week it was up to you to decide what your risk was, right? I didn't tell you when to stop. But this time, other side. I'm going to tell you you're now constricted on the risk, but I'm not telling you how much you can make this week. There isn't a number, right? Don't go for something crazy, but now it's up to you. Last week it was up to you to decide the risk. This week it's up to for you to decide the reward. Right? You're constricted on the number of trades, but you're not constricted on how much you can make this week. The maximum should be 2 trades on the week if you win or you're break even on Wednesday, right? If you win or you break even on Wednesday, you're only allowed 1 more trade on Thursday. If you lose on Wednesday, you are then allowed 2 trades on Thursday. So you should have the maximum of 3 trades if you lose Wednesday or 2 trades if you win Wednesday. Obviously, journal the duration of the trade, the size of the contract, the risk per trade, the reward per trade, the time of day, the specific draw and liquidity targeted, stop placement, time of break even if used, emotions before, during, and after. Guys, the more you tell me, the more I can decipher it, right? I really like to get up here and give you guys as much as I can, but I need as enough information as you can give me, right? If you just give me a little bit, it's hard for me to really tell what you were looking at. But if you can give me what you were looking at and the way you were going about it, and if you highlight all this stuff for me, I can give you a good, honest opinion on where and how that trade could either be better or even little things that you could have done better even if it was great. It's okay. Axel, it's perfectly fine. You can still send it in and I'll mark it and I'll go over it next week too. You can send 2 of them in next week. It's not a problem. Um, So yeah, it's a little different this week, right? Last week it was up to you, and from what I saw, risk was minimal, right? We had some lose 1%, some 0.5%, some break even. Perfectly fine. All in good realm. This week, I'm giving you the risk, so you have to follow the risk, but I'm not giving you the reward. So it's up to you. If you want to shoot for 10%, do it. If it bites you in the ass, it's on you. If you want to get 1.5%, get 1.5%. If you want to get 0.5%, get 0.5%. You want to get 5%, get 5%. But you only have a specific amount of trades and risk to use. It's up to you how long you hold those trades and where you take those trades, right? Each week it's going to be different. You only get 2 days to trade this week also, Wednesday or Thursday. And if you notice, where is the volatility this week? I'm placing you in the volatility. Because as traders, that's what we need. Whether it can be scary or not, that's what we need. When you get good at this stuff, you need to be in the market or looking in and around the market that is moving. That's how you get in and you get out fast and you get paid for your time. Even though as a trader right now, you might sit there and say, well, I really like Mondays, or I really like Tuesdays, or I really like Fridays. I don't care. You will have trades or tasks throughout however long we do this where you have all week to trade and you can pick that. But I want to get you zoned in to what goes on when these news events come out. At the same time, if you think about last week, I did not want you anywhere near NFP. So there's differences, right? It's all based on, like I said at the first half of it. The first thing we always go over is the news catalog. because it's going to show you when and where to trade and when and where to not trade. Some news events you want to be in there looking, seeing what's going on. For example, this week. Some news events you need to let them happen without you and be out of the market before that even happens. For example, NFP. There are some news events that you need to let happen, but then be a participant X amount of time following. FOMC, CPI. Some news events, you need to be there right on the dot. You start to find out these things. You need to be there just in and around those times, right? You definitely don't want to be there before CPI or FOMC. You definitely don't want to be there at all during NFP. And then a lot of these other little tiny news events, whether it's unemployment claims, ISM, like PPIs, all this stuff, you want to just be in and around, whether it's before or after, or right? Like you just want to be there. I need to get you guys to the mindset of I need to be around the volatility, right? If you get caught up trading Monday, there's nothing going on Monday. The market's going to potentially, odds are the market set, whatever the market does Monday and Tuesday is going to give you enough information to tell you what's going to happen Wednesday. And then whatever happens Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday is going to give you enough information to tell you what could potentially unfold on Thursday. Right? Even trade like this, I like weeks like this because the only news of the entire week is on the back half of the week, which means I now get 2 days, not just Monday, but I get now 2 days of information. I get to see what Monday does, and I get to see what Tuesday does. That gives me an extra day of waiting to see what price does. I use that as that's good. Like the more I can wait, the better I am on my trades. The better I feel about my trades because I'm getting more information. Any questions, comments, or concerns there? All good. So yeah, we have I've got a long week coming up this week. We're trying to finish up the platform. Um, don't hold me to it, but we're really going to try to get it out this week to the beta testers. If you guys have not yet, please send a testimony. We very much would appreciate it. Just two short sentences of where you're from. That'll get you access 1 week early before everyone else. And I got to talk with Henry, but I'm thinking that next week we will have a call specifically for just the beta testers. You will get a private invite link, and we will run you guys through the entire platform on a Zoom call. You guys can ask questions, comments, concerns. We'll walk through it all. We'll give you guys the whole release of all that stuff. The only hint I've been able to give you is my chart colors changed. If you didn't notice that, instead of they've been kind of a yellowish, goldish, and black, now they're just white and black. You can try to send it in English if you want, or you can send it in whatever language you want, and we can translate it. I can use online translators. It's totally up to you. Just as long as you can tell us where you're from, it's not bad at all. Anything is greatly appreciated. It helps us a lot on the back end. But other than that, that is about it for me. I'm super, super excited to start utilizing the platform. It has been a lot of work, but it's been fun, and I cannot wait to see where it goes. It's going to be very interesting. Other than that, trade safe this week. Good luck on the task if you choose to trade it. And I will see you guys on Wednesday. You will hear from me. Hopefully, let me know too. Email me if you guys like those midweek reviews being very short. We've kept them inside 10 minutes. If there's things that you guys want us to add to it, maybe let me know. Any feedback there works. But for now, we're just going to continue just real quick, short, sweet, to the point, giving you guys that midweek review being inside like 10 minutes. Aside from that, hopefully I got something to share next week. I know I will. Thank you guys so much. Trade safe. Happy Sunday. If you are in the States, enjoy your Labor Day tomorrow. We do have a long weekend. That's another thing too. Just reminded me. Tomorrow is Labor Day. So that is going to be, and don't look at the market. Don't look at the market, right? The United States banks, I believe, are closed. I don't know if it's a bank holiday or not. Actually, I can pull this up really quick and find out. Let me just filter this really quick. Yeah, we have a bank holiday on Monday. You can see right there. So no need to even look at a market, right? Tuesday will act as Monday. I believe banks are closed, so obviously there's not a whole lot going on there. Um, so uh, take the day off, right? Don't look at a chart. Give it an extra day to prepare. There's a reason why the trading days this week for the task are Wednesday and Thursday. I will start jibber jabbering. Talk to you guys later. Trade safe. Have a great week. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.